Hey guys, kinggath here to talk about Industrial Revolution. In this video, I want to talk about gameplay balance and space management. So, in the first version of Sim Settlements, I introduced the dynamic needs system, which the idea behind that was to make sure that it was interesting to always work on your settlement, that the needs that the settlers required evolved as the city grew to kind of simulate the idea that as a civilization becomes more prosperous, the people start expecting more goods and services. Now, with Industrial Revolution, the dynamic needs system is pushed to the max. If you'll notice now, whenever you choose a new advanced industrial building, there's a list of benefits and costs, and this was used throughout the system to make balancing out your plots part of the gameplay. We're shifting from the idea of a Minecraft type building mode to more of a civilization style, where you're taking a small civilization that's basically a bunch of cavemen and building them up over time into a prosperous industrial city. So at different stages, your needs are going to change. Now, some of that's already reflected in the numbers on the plots. For example, the food on the agricultural starting very low and growing much higher as you go on represents the fact that over time you need less people to work farms in order to provide food. And the same concept is applied to things like defense and happiness and other needs of that nature. So with the advanced industrial plots, you're often going to have to make decisions of, should I build this coal plant, which is going to plummet my settlers' happiness, or should I wait a while until my food upgrades high enough to where I can take a farmer off of that duty and have them run a recreational plot to counteract the happiness cost? Things of that nature are some of the decisions in mind with Sim Settlements Industrial Revolution that you'll be making as you play. Now, obviously, if you don't like the idea of any of this, you don't like civilization games, and you just want to do the free build type of mode, I'd highly recommend turning off dynamic needs, even if you just do it on a local settlement level, because it is heavily impacted with this expansion pack. On the other hand, if you like this idea of the balancing gameplay of figuring out what are the right jobs to give each of your settlers, keep that dynamic needs system on. The numbers have all been meticulously balanced based around the average number of settlers people will end up with in a settlement, so that as you grow through the game, the numbers will adjust to make that gameplay work, so that you could build your game entirely around plots. Now, that's not to say that you're meant to never build any of the vanilla items. A lot of those are very interesting and great, especially in the early game, where it might be worth popping in a turret here and there or adding in a water pump to augment all of the different plot ideas, especially with smaller settlements where you're not going to have room for all these plots. Ultimately, I would like to be able to support even the smaller settlements, but it's still a ways off before we can get to there, because building a smaller plot requires a whole new building model, which is one of the most time-consuming parts of designing the mod. So you're definitely encouraged to also use the vanilla items, but the idea behind balancing out your plot types to give your settlers correct jobs is a key piece to Sim Settlements. One of the things that a lot of people figured out pretty early on was that as you grow your settlements, you could start removing farms, and that's by design. And in the same way, it's designed that you can start upgrading certain things. For example, the basic industrial, you could convert into advanced industrial. The idea being that as your civilization grows, you're not going to need the same things you did early on. So the idea of destroying plots later and replacing them is absolutely part of the gameplay. So you're not doing something wrong if you feel like you're doing that constantly. It is by design. Now, if none of this interests you, I want to reiterate, you can turn off dynamic needs, which will essentially eliminate most of what I just said of being relevant. There are only a handful of requirements outside of that based on plots requiring other plot types to exist. All of those options can be toggled off. Again, everything is meant to be optional so that you can use the system either out of the box how I've designed it, which is to be kind of a civilization style experience where you're making decisions of what types of plots to build based on the needs, or it can become just a building simulator, kind of a Minecraft thing, by turning off a lot of these options. So the control is in your hands. Sim Settlements has gotten much more complex with this patch, but the core gameplay of hands-off, just lay down plots and let your settlers take care of the rest remains. One of the things I'll be doing in a future patch is setting up a sort of wizard to help you guide through all of these various options to set up Sim Settlements to match your gameplay style. It will ask you things about how hardcore you want your game to be, how immersive you want it to be, etc., so that you can quickly set up the holotape options to match your gameplay style without having to dig in that deep. Now, on that note, the next video, I'm going to cover the holotape in a holotape 3.0 video, which I think is long overdue, to go in deep and explain each of the different options in the holotape.